Hello, Father. I've come for guidance.
What question troubles you, my son?
Well, I can't decide if eating foie gras is wrong. I mean, is it animal cruelty? Is it good old-fashioned animal husbandry? I don't know. I don't know what to think. What should I do?
Do your own research, moron. Get your own opinion.
Okay. So since we did something for Mother's Day, let's do something for Father's Day. Unfortunately, mine's going to be out of town that weekend, so we'll be having this little dinner party at my grandpa's place. So we're actually going to be working with another liver in this episode, a very infamous kind of liver known as foie gras. Foie gras is a goose or duck liver that has been intentionally fattened through a force-feeding technique known as gavaging, in which a metal or plastic tube is inserted down the bird's gullet in order to gorge the bird and fatten its liver far beyond its normal size. Because of instances of animal cruelty in the past, foie gras is often a strong standing point for animal rights activists, as an example of inhumane practices against animals, all for the sake of a luxurious, expensive product. And if the idea of force-feeding an animal comes off as cruel to you, well then you're not alone, even on the cast of Hannibal. The character Phyllis, Bella Crawford, actually refuses a course of foie gras while having dinner at Hannibal's with her husband Jack.
Too rich.
Too cruel.
In fact, the actress herself, Gina Torres, had ethical concerns regarding eating actual foie gras on set, so Janice made her a faux foie gras out of cornmeal to eat during the scene. In this scene, though, it's worth pointing out that Hannibal makes reference to employing the services of an ethical butcher who doesn't condone or practice any unnecessary suffering.
Be kind to animals and then eat them.
I'm afraid I insist on it.
So is it possible to make foie gras humanely? Because admittedly, when starting this project, I had already predetermined that any of the recipes using foie gras, I was going to use her faux foie alternative, or simply skip altogether. But being a stickler for doing things absolutely by the book, and really wanting to expand my knowledge of these kinds of ingredients, it was only fair that I do my own brand of research. After all, I really know nothing about it. So what's the story with foie gras? Foie gras started getting a lot of attention around 2004 when activists broke onto Sonoma foie gras farms, obtaining footage that showed ducks in horrible health kept in filthy conditions. This was picked up by the news and eventually made its way to Capitol Hill in Sacramento, where eventually legislation was passed banning the sale and production of foie gras in California, which became active in 2012 and was later overturned in 2015. This unfortunately didn't appear to be the only instance where animals were found to be kept in deplorable conditions. A few older documentary-type videos can be found all over YouTube, even one randomly narrated by Roger Moore.
Hello, I'm Roger Moore for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals with an important message about foie gras.
However, at the initial hearings, testimony was given by a veterinarian and aviary expert who visited the farm and claims she saw no instances of animal cruelty at Sonoma Farms, or any unsanitary practices, and the owner of the farm went so far as to make the claim that the video was staged. Further into my research, I found out that most of the major players involved with getting this bill passed hadn't even taken the time to visit the farm themselves before passing this legislation, and effectively ending this man's 20-plus-year-old business. But I don't know. I'm still not satisfied yet. So for answers, we just need to get right down to the facts. What does gavaging entail? Does it hurt the animal? Is this process unhealthy for the bird in general? And if it is being cruelly done, can it be done humanely? A lot of my research is varied, because its authors usually have a biased agenda. Either animal rights activists who want to see the eating of animals end entirely, or business owners and chefs who will lose either profits or, in the minds of chefs, artistic freedom and are against such bans as the one in California. Fortunately, I came across a very well done documentary by Munchies, a division of Vice, and done from the unbiased viewpoint of someone like me, who doesn't know either way and just wants the facts. And I've gone ahead and included the link in the description for anyone interested in seeing it. I highly recommend it, it's very good. So to understand this process, we have to understand a little bit of duck and goose anatomy. First of all, to say that birds in general don't have a gag reflex to speak of. So anthropomorphizing the experience to a human initially sounds pretty horrifying. Will somebody please help Will Graham? But the simple fact is that because ducks' throats differ from ours in the placement of their esophagus and larynx, a pipe being inserted into the throat of a duck or goose does not actually block their airway, and according to our bird specialist all the way back from the 2004 hearing, does not cause distress to a bird. In fact, it's actually common practice among veterinarians to force feed a bird that otherwise won't eat themselves.
And it's not anything that's harmful, or we wouldn't do it in a sick duck.
And in fact, the interior of a goose's throat is quite durable. and the fact that they eat things like whole crayfish without hurting themselves. So it seems like a smooth tube would be relatively no problem. But one of the most important facts that I came across here to keep in mind is that ducks and geese will actually do this gorging process themselves, naturally. And they do this to prepare for migration. No, most likely not to the extreme sizes that we see in foie gras production. But in order to have the energy to be able to fly long distances without stopping, ducks and geese will spend this time before migration eating anything they see, constantly. Farmers are simply hijacking this process of nature, as we do for almost all animals we process and eat. In fact, the practice of gavaging goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. So I'm still kind of stuck. The science tells us the process is okay for a goose or duck to endure, but the several videos of animal cruelty are impossible to ignore. Fortunately, it does seem that most footage of cruel practices is somewhat dated, and any new footage on the subject seems to show that farmers are taking the concerns of animal cruelty very seriously. In the documentary, we're even given the chance to witness an actual gavage feeding from an actual foie gras farm in a little town in France. When posed the question of whether or not she thought the process was cruel, the farmer initially laughs at the idea, because most anyone in farming will tell you that there is a special kind of relationship and even love between farmers and the animals, even those that they intend to kill and eat.
The farmer who hand-rears lambs loves them and sends them to slaughter.
But this process, observed in the hands of a caring and skilled professional, didn't seem cruel at all. Just seemed like another typical chore on the farm. The tube is inserted, the machine pipes in the corn, the farmer gives the gullet a little bit of a rub, and that's it. It takes barely 10 seconds. So just like anything else in the world, it seems like there's a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something. Or in this case, the humane way and the cruel way. In the same way, there's a humane way and a cruel way to give a prostate exam. I'm sure there are lots of protocols in place in the medical field to ensure that a prostate exam is quick, painless, and doesn't end up as a sketch in a stand-up comedian's act. But if you find yourself bent over in a tiger cage with your ass hanging out of the bars and your doctor is lubing up the finger he wears his class ring on with hot sauce, then you may want to seek out a different medical professional. You're welcome for that image, by the way. Enjoy that. So I give this one the Hannibal I seal of approval. Now we just have to find it. Hi, I was calling to see if you sell foie gras. No. Do you know who does? No. Hi, I'm calling to see if you sell foie gras. Hi, do you sell foie gras? Do you sell foie gras? Hi, I'm calling to ask if you sell foie gras. Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? Oh, I already called you? You still don't have it? Hello? Hi, I'm calling to ask if you sell foie gras. Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? Foie gras? What did I ever do to you, huh? Hi, I was calling to see if you happen to sell foie gras. You do? Yeah. That's great. Let's hit the road. So after about an hour's drive, here we are in Oak Park, Illinois, at Carnivore Butcher and Market to pick up our foie gras. I'm here to pick up the foie gras. Thank you. We have the liver. So after dozens of calls, heaps of frustration, an hours-long trip, and $100 later, and here we are, our lobe of foie gras. Very excited to get to start using this stuff. The star of this dinner party is the venison medallions with seared foie gras, which is going to be served with the sage plum berry sauce. And we'll be cooking the foie gras using a method used in a different recipe, the seared foie gras with the sage plum berry sauce. So we're knocking out a couple of recipes in one, which is good because I've got a lot of them. For an introductory course, I'll be making the roasted cauliflower brain. As a before-dinner nibbler, I'll be making the pomegranate chèvre, which I hope is as tasty as it looks. And finally, for dessert, we'll be making summer pudding and decorating with sugared rosebuds, which I've enlisted the help of my brother's wife Amanda for, since she's quite the talented baker. And that seems as good a place to start as any. So begin with a small rose arrangement. Now it is imperative that these roses be free of any pesticides since they'll come in contact with food. I got this little arrangement from a Whole Foods market, but just make sure you confirm with the floral department that the roses have not been treated with any pesticides or color preservers. Cut the roses you need, but leave plenty of stem to work with and give them a good rinse and let them dry. Now begin with a single egg yolk and separate the yolk from the white and discard the yolk. Now give them a good beating with a fork or whisk until nice and frothy. Using a small paintbrush, paint a nice generous coating of the egg white all over and inside the rosebuds and petals. Then, over a plate of sugar, sprinkle the roses with the sugar. We found that especially with the larger sized buds we had to repeat with more coats of egg white and sugar to really get them coated, and sometimes touch up certain areas that may have been missed. But eventually we got some very pretty sugar-coated roses. Hang those on a rack of some kind and let them dry in a cool place, and there we have it. Now for the dessert itself, begin by washing some fresh strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries, and cut your strawberries into quarters. Now to a medium saucepan, add all of your berries and sprinkle with a cup of sugar, and put those over medium heat and stir to coat. Allow the sugar to melt and dissolve, and then add a shot of triple sec, and heat through just until the sugar is dissolved. You don't want to let your berries cook too much and become mushy. We still want them to have some bite. To assemble our puddings, line a small glass or ceramic dish with plastic wrap, and then line with slices of crustless white bread. Press into the bread until you have a nice shell like this. Then fill with spoonfuls of your berries, making sure you add plenty of juice. Smooth out and top with 2 more slices of your crustless white bread. Then wrap very tightly in plastic wrap, making sure to pull very taut on all sides. Arrange your puddings on a pan or platter and place a cutting board on top, and then some kind of weight. We went with food cans, and place those in the fridge overnight. Now we begin our pomegranate chèvre appetizer. So start with half a cup of softened chèvre goat cheese, a quarter cup of softened cream cheese, a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, and a teaspoon of white wine. And combine that all together, which I did with a potato masher, which yielded some entertaining Play-Doh-like results. To that, add a quarter cup of chopped walnuts, a quarter cup of chopped sun-dried tomatoes, and a tablespoon of fresh finesse herbs, which is an herb blend made of sage, parsley, and chives, and also chèvre, which I didn't have. Mix all that together and put in a bowl covered in plastic wrap and refrigerate for at least 1 hour. After an hour, we're now going to take our cheese mixture and roll it into a ball like so. Then place the cheese ball into a bowl of pomegranate seeds and roll around to coat completely. I found I had to press some of them in more firmly, but eventually we made a pretty little cheese ball. Cover and refrigerate until ready to serve, but take it out an hour before serving. Now we'll begin making our sage plum berry sauce by dicing up some red plums and some prune plums into small pieces like so. Now in a saucepan over medium heat, begin with a can of whole berry cranberry sauce and 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Add your diced plums and stir to combine as the cranberry sauce begins to melt. Lay on top of your sauce some fresh sprigs of sage and reduce the heat to a low simmer and allow it to simmer until the plums are softened. Now this is not required, but for a nice clean presentation I strained my sauce, but otherwise you can simply remove the sage sprigs and serve fruits and all. Press out as much sauce as you can and discard your pulp, and there we have our sauce. With our venison tenderloin, I've decided to make some asparagus as a side dish. So begin with some asparagus stalks and clean them by holding both ends, allowing the stem to break where it naturally breaks. Now pile all of that into a gallon Ziploc bag, and to that add a few squeezes of fresh lemon juice. Yeah, just throw that in there too, why not? A few cloves of crushed garlic, and of course, plenty of kosher salt and fresh ground pepper. And just for fun, a few spritzes of Dijon mustard. Seal all that goodness up and move it all around to coat, and we're going to let this marinate all night in the fridge. And that takes care of all of our prep work. To see how the dinner turned out, and for a bonus foie gras recipe, look out for part 2 of this episode of Hannibal and I. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the kitchen next time.
Ducky.